Welcome back, Raider Nation, to another edition of Silver and Black Today in Odyssey Sports original podcast. You can also hear it on the radio on Saturdays on 101.5 KDON in Las Vegas. Do us a favor, if you don't already subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your audio, go do that. Please, we would appreciate it very much. If you're watching us on YouTube or any of the other channels, do us a favor, subscribe there too. Yes, you gotta get your Silver and Black Today wherever you can. And do us a favor, hit the thumbs up there, hit that notifications bell, so you know anytime we're back with new content. It is Tuesday. We're getting into our regular season schedule here. 2 shows a week. Yeah, Tuesday, Thursday, and sometimes in between, of course, Sundays. Myself, Scott Gulbransen, along with my co-host, Mr. Moton, senior NFL writer at Bleacher Report, also a columnist, where you can catch his new feature at Sportsnaut, some daily Raider stuff. Right, Mo? I mean, you weren't busy enough, so you needed more.
Yeah, it turns out that I had some room in my schedule. I had, an extra 5 minutes here in my schedule somewhere to stick in a Raiders daily piece. But shout out to Sportsnaut for offering me the opportunity to do that. Of course, I'm on top of Raiders news as it is, so it was nothing for me to get up every morning and push out another Raiders piece on Sportsnaut.
That's right. I mean, why not? Just get up and do it. Not a problem there. All right, so we're here. We're going to be talking today. By the way, follow Mo on X at Moton, MOEMOTN, right? Yes. And follow me, LV Gully, both up on X. You can follow the show at SNB Today, as I am getting caught doing some multitasking here, as I forgot a couple things. But anyway, we're rolling on. We want to get back with you and talk to you about the game on Saturday, what went down with the 49ers, some key things I think that come out there that we need to talk about with all of you, and why not, right? Because that's what we're here to do. And so we want to get into some of the things as well. Second segment, we're going to get into, I believe, the team's biggest problem, which is the defense, specifically pass defense, specifically depth. How many times we talk about depth on this show, Mo? A few times?
Probably every year with the Raiders since we do.
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to do that as well. And then also talk about what's coming up, because the Raiders, of course, have their final preseason game coming up this weekend as well. So we'll get to that too. So that's what's on the docket. So Mo, let's start, because, we get accused of being anti this or anti that, or too pro this, too pro that, which is fine because you can't please anybody. And frankly, if they don't like us, I don't care. But here we go. Good news first. And that is the first team offense. We saw Geno Smith go out there. Not only did Geno Smith finish 5 of 8, 55 yards, led the offense on 2 scoring drives as well. He spread the ball around, multiple receivers, which is great. Also, he said, Geno Smith, after the game, I wasn't touched in the pocket. So we see the offensive line coming out and doing better. In fact, they paved massive running lanes for Ashton Jeanty. We'll get to him in a second. Jordan Meredith, Jackson Powers Johnson. Some people still had their panties in a bunch about those guys and their positions. And guess what? Both of them doing pretty dang good against a good 49ers team as well on defense. And so, Mo, I like this offense, and we'll get to Jeanty in a second, as well as get to some defensive bright spots, because there are some. But you look at what this offense was able to do. You and I on this show on Thursday of last week said, going into this 49ers game, we wanted to see better execution. We wanted to see more of the first offense so that they could get into that rhythm that they need to get into before they start the regular season. And we certainly saw that from this offensive unit, the offensive line, the receivers, and of course the quarterback.
So positive sign for the offensive line. It's starting to build some chemistry. And I think we've talked about this. You want to have the same 5 guys on the field at the same time as much as possible before the regular season, because those are the guys that are going to have to work together. But you also want to mix in guys from potentially the second unit, because your offensive line isn't going to be totally healthy for the entire season. How many times do we see that? But good signs for the offensive line. Good sign for that Geno Smith was comfortable in the pocket, saying he didn't get touched. Ashton Jeanty, even when he doesn't have lanes, he's going to probably shake off 3 or 4 defenders before he goes to the ground. Overall, I like what I saw out of the offense. Even Jack Besh getting a little bit involved. Michael Mayer getting a catch. Wish he had rolled in for that touchdown. But he did have a catch, and he was involved. So Geno Smith spread the ball around. The Raiders quarterback spread the ball around. You saw different playmakers making plays on Saturday against the 49ers.
Right. And we talked about Ashton Jeanty, of course, after what somebody considered an underwhelming debut, 3 carries. I mean, I don't know how you can judge from anything 3 carries. And there's still a lot of you out there. Oh, it's not the Mountain West. There's still people out there, Mo, who are doubting him. Good. But Ashton Jeanty, of course, that nasty stiff arm, hey, here's what I'm about against 49ers cornerback Lenore, of course. And then he showed I think, just what he can be with those lanes opening up. And 7 carries for 33 yards. Of course, he had his first NFL touchdown, a 1-yard touchdown on his second attempt from first and goal there. And Mo, the thing I like about this, and Rich Gannon brought it up, and also the broadcasters on several of the highlight reels brought it up too, which is Ashton Jeanty. You look at smaller running backs who've been really successful in the NFL. We saw that in this game, which was they come out of the break, they find the lane, and you can't pick them up because they're a little smaller than the line, just a little bit, and they sneak out, and then they hit that open ground, and they can turn on the afterburners. We saw that on that run, that stiff arm of Ashton Jeanty out there, and we got a peek here of what we really expect him to do, frankly, on a weekly basis.
I had a Bleacher Report column on my winners and losers from that game, and the obvious winner was Ashton Jeanty because I said he showed 3 things in that one quarter. He showed toughness, getting popped in the shoulder, going to medical tank, coming back out, and then doing the same thing. Continue to be in a rugged ball carrier, which is what he is. Now, a lot of people are going to say he needs to take less hits, but it's football. Football's a physical sport. You get hit, especially at the running back position. It's one of the most physical positions. You're going to take a lot of hits. That's his style of play. I'm not going to change it. If he's been successful doing that, continue doing it. He's going to make plays doing it, by the way. Showed pass catching ability on that same play where he got hurt. We already knew he can catch the football, but you saw it in that game. And then he showed the tackle breaking, as I just talked about. He probably broke more than a handful of tackles.
Oh yeah,
in that short stint, maybe 5-6 tackles, maybe 3-4 on one play. So you got to see the total package in a very short and it's a very small sample size. The pass catching ability, the toughness, and then the tackle breaking ability. So Ashton Jeanty, as advertised, I know some people, as you said, still doubting him, but as advertised, when given time to find his rhythm, looks like a top running back in this league.
No question. I think that the advice LaDainian Tomlinson got when he came in the NFL from none other than Emmitt Smith, maybe you've heard of him, was to lengthen your career, was to go out of bounds, right, when you're about to get hit. So I think you're going to get hit at the line of scrimmage. Like you said, Mo, it's a physical game. He can't avoid that stuff. But when he gets out in the open, it's taking that extra hit. Those are the kind of things, not only do you get hurt sometimes, but the nature of it over time is what wears on you. So that's going to be something that we'll watch with Ashton Jeanty, but I think he'll do that anyway. But we look at the offense. Loving that, looking good up on the line. I know a lot of people like to criticize the offensive line. We're still, I think, concerned with the offensive line. We have to see how it gels. But based on the performance, they did really well, especially when you compare it to what happened in preseason week 1, which was not good at all. So there was a big leap. And your questions about Brendan Carroll as coach, got to give him some credit too. This line came into this game, just looked more focused. The execution was crisp and it was on the money.
49ers is known for a team that wins the line of scrimmage, both sides. And I know it's a preseason game and not all your starters are out there, but it's a build of confidence for the Raiders, for a very crucial unit on the Raiders offense and for all offenses across the league. If your offensive line is getting pushed around, chances are you're going to lose the football game.
Absolutely.
And now you spent a 6th overall pick on a running back. You better have your offensive line intact. I will say really quick, Scott, Pete Carroll had a very interesting comment after the game about the center position when he talked about Jordan Meredith taking over that position. And he said Jackson Powers-Johnson is battling at guard. In my opinion, when you hear that, he's basically telling you Jordan Meredith is going to be the starting center. So for the people out there who are still holding out hope that Jackson Powers-Johnson is going to start center, it ain't going to happen. Nope. Pete Carroll basically told you that Jordan Meredith is taking over that position and Jackson Powers-Johnson is a guard.
And that's what you want, right? It's a meritocracy. Hey, you beat somebody out in camp, you beat somebody out in camp. It's the way it goes. So good stuff. All right, now some defensive bright spots, because we're going to get into the second segment, and that's going to be all about what's wrong with the defense, including some bright spots there, but we'll get to that in a second. But the run defense, Mo, if you look at this, it was brutal against Seattle. I commented on this show, on X, everything, how slow they looked, how they could not handle the line of scrimmage. You look at what they did against the 49ers. The starting defense gave up -1 yards on 6 carries. -1 yards on 6 carries. San Francisco averages 2.3 yards per carry on the day and only had 2 runs of 10 yards or more. That was a good sign.
That was a good sign compared to what we saw against the Seattle Seahawks when George Holani was just looking like Barry Sanders out there or LaDainian Tomlinson out there racking up yards. So the Raiders definitely tightened up. They got another chance to go out there and tackle. You saw a better defensive tackling team, which is a good sign. Of course, there are some concerns there that we will talk about.
Oh yeah,
but it's a step in the right direction. I know they're going against backups, but if you can't stop the run, teams are just gonna mow you down and wear you down. So it's good to see that the defense, the interior, was able to respond. I will say though, Scott, at the beginning of that game, there was still some issues with outside contain where the runner was getting to the outside.
Yep.
They still have to patch that up.
Yeah, and again, I go back to the linebacker core, which we're going to talk about in a minute too. A couple things to call out too before we get to the next segment. That is, of course, Jeremy Chinn, I think, showed us who the Jeremy Chinn that I remember from college at Southern Illinois, then into the NFL and what we all expected him to be. And so he did really, really well. The only interception on the day there as well. His performance in week 1 was not great either. So to see him bounce back as a veteran to perform that well, I thought was good. Also, I penciled in Chris Smith II, who I thought did well. He had 7 solo tackles and was solid in pass coverage. Not great in pass coverage, but solid. And he made an impressive touchdown tackle too, if you remember there towards the end. So I think he's a guy to watch because we're going to talk about in a minute. The Raiders are struggling all over the defensive backfield. We're going to get to that. But those 2 guys to me really stuck out. How about you?
Yeah, Chris Smith II played so sparingly that I literally forgot he was on the roster when Scott mentioned him before the show. A little background joke there, but looking at the defense, I'm looking at the linebacker core. I know we're going to talk about this in the next segment, but there was a lot of talk about Liam Eichenberg and what should the Raiders do with Liam Eichenberg, because there are some moments where Liam Eichenberg looks like Luke Masterson, not doing well against the run. Not fitting his run, not going to his run.
Is that Tommy Eichenberg's evil twin or?
Oh, why I keep calling him the Liam? Tommy Eichenberg.
I'm just so happy, Mo. I'm happy you got the wrong because I always get the wrong names. I'm always the one who does that. So
why do I keep calling? I know Liam Eichenberg's with the Dolphins. That's the second week I've done that. Second week I've done it. Tommy Eichenberg, Ohio State product. But Tommy Eichenberg, there are times where he's off on his run fits, and there are times where he'll shoot the gap and he'll make the tackle. And there was a moment late in the game, I believe, the 49ers were driving down the field, and Tommy Eichenberg makes a clean tackle in the backfield, and you're like, okay, well, maybe if we could see more of that, he's worth developing behind Jamal Adams and Devin White, Jermaine Pratt, and Landon Roberts. But I think he's a player that, if the Raiders were to keep him, there would be some people like, why are they keeping Tommy Eichenberg? Yeah. And if they cut him, there are some people that say, well, he's at least worth landing on the practice squad and developing.
And maybe they see development with Tommy Eichenberg and his brother Liam, but I don't know. I'm just kidding. No, gave up too much in coverage. Here's my notes. Gave up too much in coverage, got blocked out of several plays, got lost in the shuffle against the run several times. He just looked lost out there. And that's not a good thing in week 2 of the preseason if you're trying to make a roster, that's for sure. But certainly that's some of the positives and the negatives we take away. Now, we're going to take our first break on this Tuesday edition of Silver and Black Today. When we come back, we're going to get into this defensive concern or a problem, whatever you want to call it. We're going to call it a concern because we're going to sound like we're on NPR or something. We'd have to whisper and broadcast like this instead. This is Liam. And I'm saying goodbye. No, we are going to take our first break. When we come back, we'll get into the defensive concerns, talk about some players on the bubble, or talk about some players I think that just aren't going to make the roster. We'll get to that. You're with Mo and Scott. This is Silver and Black Today. Don't go anywhere. Fun. Welcome back. Segment number 2 of the Tuesday edition of Silver and Black Today. Welcome back to everybody again. Subscribe. If you don't already subscribe to the audio, do so wherever you get your audio. Look for Silver and Black Today. Don't forget, rate and review. That means a lot to us. We certainly appreciate it. If you hate us, go pound sand. But no, you could leave a review too. We don't care. In fact, we get a kick out of this. But do it anyway. Also, if you're watching us on video, subscribe there as well. We love your comments, and we will respond to them. All right. Moton and Scott Gulbransen back with you. We're talking about the Raiders. And coming out of this game, Mo, we saw this in the first game. We just talked about some of the defensive improvements we saw, like the run defense, which couldn't do anything but get better than week one. And that was good. So you got to give credit where credit is due there. But for me, when you look at the defense, you have pass defense. The pass defense is a really, really, really big issue because I'll tell you why. You look at this, the Raiders secondary has not gotten any cohesiveness. You haven't seen anybody really step forward. The linebacking core, as you mentioned, is not strong in pass coverage. They're really slow and they're hard to react. They've struggled against the run early on as well. 49ers and Brock Purdy in particular diced up that starting unit for the Raiders. I mean, it wasn't even close. There's no real resistance from this defense in the air. And when you're in the AFC West with Patrick Mahomes, and Herbert and Bo Nix, that's a problem, Mo. And I think that this situation, outside of the improved play of Jeremy Chinn, this is a really big deal. And they're not going to fix it all before the regular season. But I think from this week until next week, we got to see something out of these guys. We don't think they're going to make any moves. But this could be a big problem, and why I said they could score 30 points on average this year and still only win 6 or 7 games.
Scott, people are going to say you're overreacting, but I totally agree with you. I had this post right after the game. I asked Raider fans, are you ready for the Raiders to try to win games 38-35 week to week with the way the offense is looking, the way the defense is looking? Because while you could say, yes, Jeremy Chinn got that interception, if the defense has to rely on turnovers to get off the field, that's a problem because you need to get those 3 and outs. If you're relying, turnovers happen in flurries, and you can go on a turnover drought where you don't get a turnover for several games. So if you're relying solely on turnovers for your defense to make stops, that's a problem. And you said it, Brock Purdy, Ricky Pearsall look like, Cooper Kupp out there against the Raiders defense. And he had consecutive catches, early in that game. And I think also it was said during the practices that the Raiders defense, particularly the secondary, struggled against the 49ers, even in the joint practices.
Yeah.
So this is a continuing theme here that if Jeremy Chinn is not there to snag, if he's not grabbing 9-10 interceptions this year, teams are going to go up and down the field on the Raiders defense. Now, you could say maybe it's a bend but don't break defense where they give up a bunch of yards, but they tighten up in the red zone. Fine, you could say that. But again, if you're relying on tightening up in one area of the field, you still put a lot of pressure on your offense to score points because teams rather get 6-3. But if you're giving up these scoring drives consecutive, those points pile up.
Absolutely. And not only that, but then what makes it worse, Mo, and what's going to expose them even more if this stays the way it is the lack of pass rush, right? Now, I'm going to get into a positive coming here in a second, but you look at the lack of pass rush here. I said they improved against the run, great, but against the pass, you saw really nothing. I do have, and I want to show this, and I'm going to thank our buddy Ted Nguyen over at The Athletic because I pulled his video, which is really from the All-22, which you and I have access to as well from NFL. But this is, I want to show some video of Tyree Wilson because those of you out there telling me Tyree Wilson is a bust, we're starting to see some movement here, Mo. I'm not saying he's all the way where he needs to be, but let me show you some video here of Tyree Wilson. You can see him here break through and break up this play. Like, so the disruption here, I run each play twice. So he cuts off the lane there and the backside with Max Crosby and everybody's able to come get him, right? So you see it here, and this is progress. See, he's strengthening the tackle there. Excuse me, the guard. He does again. Now, on the second play, here's Tyree Wilson again. Look what he does here. Same thing. He kicks the inside and runs the guard right into the quarterback, disrupts the play for an incompletion, okay? Then here's another one. Oh, same play. Color change on that one. But anyway, you see how he's disrupting there. Okay, he's not getting there fast enough, but there's improvement. Now he blows up the tight end here. This is the one that I liked as well, too. So he's on the end side. He's not on the inside this time. He's on the outside. And bam, right here, as you can see, he just manhandles and pushes him out of the play and pushes the play over towards the running back, and they cut it off, and they're able to contain there. But, Mo, I just wanted to show that because, we don't hear a lot about Tyree Wilson, except I still get people in my comments telling me that, oh, he's done. I wish we had somebody. We can't have a pass rush because Tyree Wilson sucks. He's showing progress.
Someone on this show said that, number one, Tyree Wilson would transition to defensive tackle and be effective as a defensive tackle.
Yes, I remember.
And
Thank you for remembering that I said that.
And someone also said that while Tyree Wilson may not have 10 sacks, he will show moderate improvement. I know it's the preseason. I get it.
Oh yeah,
but you got to build on something, right?
Yes.
You don't just development doesn't just drop out of thin air. You got to start somewhere, and it's good to see those positive signs out of Tyree Wilson. I've said this all along. I think he can have a role as an interior outside defender where you can move him into certain packages, and he could be effective against slower guards because he does have some quickness to him. He does have some burst because that's why the Raiders drafted him. The previous regime drafted him at 7. It's not what he would do as a rookie. It's the potential he had with the physical tools he had. And, you're starting to see a little bit more of it in this preseason game. Hopefully you see more of it during the regular season.
And he was doing that against first-team offense too, by the way, which, San Francisco, very good blocking team. And so to me, that's the one positive I wanted to pull out of there. Now we got to get to some individual players, I think, that can put them on the bubble, and some that I think are disappointing, and we saw with performance. I'm going to start with a guy we talk about and a lot of fans talk about, which is Isaiah Pola-Mao, who I thought really, again, missed tackles. Now, I know this team hasn't tackled a lot. We talked about that after the Seattle game, but he gave up way too much in the passing game. You have talked about the safety position all offseason, Mo, and that was going to be a concern of yours, and he's a starter alongside Chinn right now. But if this persists, if we see a third game with Pola-Mao doing this, boy, down on the back end, you're going to have some problems.
I've said that I'd want to see the Raiders add a veteran safety. Mm-hmm. Even if it's not Justin Simmons, because he may want to play with a contender, fine. Jordan Whitehead's out there. I know they added Terrell Edmonds, who's more of a box safety type of guy, and that's probably why they added him for that tackling ability that he has. But I wanted to see a safety who's, I guess, more versatile, where not only can he tackle in the box, but he can also get you those interceptions. Terrell Edmonds more of a downhill safety.
Yep.
But as far as Isaiah Pola-Mao, people have to also understand, while he did have that good interception against the Seahawks, he is still a developing player as well. He started 14 games last year, but still a relatively inexperienced starter. And if there's a missed tackle issue there, you don't want that out of the safety position, because usually that's your last line of defense, especially we talked about the Raiders secondary giving up a lot of yards. You don't want to give up extra yards because of missed tackles.
Absolutely. And to me, this goes back to, so when people are great listeners out there and viewers out there who were either disappointed or just disagreed respectfully with our 7-8 win projection, this is why, right? This does not mean this team isn't going to be better. In fact, it's going to be much better. I really believe that, especially the offense and maybe the defense up front if they can put it together. But I just think that this is the problem. And Mo, it goes back to, and I'll get into some players in a second, but the depth issue we talk about, I mentioned it earlier in the show, we talk about depth. The difference between a team making the playoffs and going far in the playoffs and being a team that's 500-ish is depth. Right? Yeah, injuries can really wear that thin sometimes, but the Raiders seem to maybe have some depth on the offensive side and the offensive line if it gels the way it is. On the defense, there's just not enough there. Tommy Eichenberg, you mentioned him earlier. Not only did he not look good, he was playing against fourth stringers in the fourth quarter, which usually tells you something about what his standing is with the coaching staff, which is worrying because Tommy Eichenberg has been listed as a depth linebacker. What does that tell you? There is no depth at linebacker, which is a big concern. So you have that. And to me, that depth, I mean, if anybody goes down on that defense, even if some guys step up and play well this last week of the preseason, this is going to be a constant issue of John Spytek and Pete Carroll and Patrick Graham doing triage all season long.
So number one, let's hope the Raiders stay mostly healthy. We know injuries are going to happen.
Absolutely.
But as you said, the Raiders can't afford to lose a starter on the defensive side of the ball. Just can't do it. Not with the depth that they have right now. We talked about Jamal Adams last week. Remember, he had that strong game against the Seattle Seahawks. I get it. It's preseason, but he looked rejuvenated, and this is why I think it's important that he makes not only makes the roster, and I think he will, but plays a significant amount of snaps, and he stays healthy because he's had some injury issues over the last 2 years, and that's why he's been, on the sideline. But I think that's part of the reason the Raiders moved Jamal Adams to the linebacker position, because they see some weakness there and some lapses that they can fill. We think it will be Jamal Adams, Devin White, Jermaine Pratt as the main linebacker, Landon Roberts as your run-stopping linebacker. But as you say, when you talk about that cliche sideline to sideline defender, the Raiders need some speed, because again, once the running back gets to the edge against this Raiders defense, they're getting chunk yardage. They have to patch that up. And the other thing I want to point out really quick, Scott, about this defense, they need Malcolm Koonce to look like the player that he looked like at the end of the 2023 season. Remember, he's coming back over 20 ACL. A lot of people saying, what's going on with Malcolm Koonce? He's not showing up on film. He's not making any splash plays. Remember, he's coming off of 20 ACL, and usually for young players, they may get back on the field next year, but they're not the same player right away.
No, it takes time to build that up. It's a huge, huge injury. I mean, even though they fix it faster, better now than they used to, it still takes time. It's a major injury. All right. 2 players I want to mention last before we get into maybe looking forward a little more is Mo. And again, people call me negative, whatever they want to call me.
Negative Nate.
I'm concerned about the backup quarterback position. I know it sounds crazy, but Cam Miller came back down to earth, did not look good. 2 critical sacks, negative yards, threw a deep ball that was intercepted, bad decision, right? That was rough. And then Aiden O'Connell, same thing, lacked mobility. Pete Carroll called it out and said it. He said, we're slower with him there. Now, for those of us who watch any football at all, including the Raiders last year, we could have told you that. You don't want to admit that, but that's what's true. So you look at this quarterback situation, and if they go in with Aiden O'Connell as the backup quarterback because they don't move him or anything like that, okay, he's been through the fire. He knows it. But it's this offense and the way it hinges on the timing, it's a concern for me. Might they look for another option?
I think they could if they were to trade Aiden O'Connell. So here's the part of the show, Scott, where Odyssey pays us to take a swipe at Aiden O'Connell. So I think what you're going to see here is either A, the Raiders keep Aiden O'Connell because they value his veteran experience. He has 20 starts on his resume, 20 touchdown passes, 11 interceptions, 63% completion rate. I get it. There's value in that. Or B, they trade Aiden O'Connell because they have an eye on another quarterback who may be available, or maybe they're in talks with the team who may be willing to trade a quarterback. I know it's the Cleveland Browns, but let's remember the Cleveland Browns have like 8 quarterbacks on their depth chart right now. They just named Joe Flacco the starter. There's no way they're going to keep all of those quarterbacks. Maybe the Raiders are interested in one of those quarterbacks. I'm just throwing that out there because they have so many on their roster right now. But my point is, there is a possibility, Scott, that they go out and get another quarterback who's on another roster if they trade Aiden O'Connell, because Cam Miller is not ready, in my opinion, to be the number 2. Last week I said he's worth developing. Because a lot of people ran with my Cam Miller comments and say, oh, Mo's saying Cam Miller's QB2. And that's not what I was saying. Is that for early signs in his first NFL game, preseason, he showed signs that he's worth developing. He's worth keeping in-house. And maybe eventually he turns into a solid backup who's a lot more mobile than Aiden O'Connell. Now, Cam Miller threw a bad, as you said, terrible interception into that game. You have to know situational awareness. You don't throw to the middle of the field when on your side of the field. You're on your side of the field throwing to the middle. That's a big no-no. You have to know the down and distance and the situation. You take the sack, you throw it away, you punt it away. I know wins and losses don't mean much in the preseason, but situationally, that was one of the worst things you can do, and Cam Miller made that big mistake.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I want to close this segment out talking about the cornerbacks, because they're still searching for answers there. You look at Eric Stokes on one side, then we talked about the guy you talked about last time, which was Caillou Blue Kelly, Darian Porter. They're in a battle for that role, but nobody's really separated themselves enough. There's moments. They both have moments. We talked about this as well. But this is a concern. So you have to start to think about what happens here, Mo, because, and we'll get into that a little deeper when we get to the next segment after the break. But how concerned are you with that other cornerback spot?
a bit concerned because while, yes, they're playing vanilla, a lot of people came at me on Twitter and said, oh, Mo, they're playing vanilla defense. What do you expect? Even if you're playing vanilla defense, there's still some things you want to see out of your defensive players, out of your players, period, in the preseason. Remember, you're looking for players making big plays and making progress and development. Isaiah Polamau has an interception. Jeremy Chinn has an interception. Where are the game-changing plays for the cornerbacks? We just haven't seen it yet. And by the way, as you mentioned, as I talked about last week, Kyu Blu is inserting himself into that cornerback battle, which tells you no one has outright claimed either of those starting boundary positions yet.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to close out this segment with a pearl of wisdom from Mr. Mo. All right, when we come back, we're going to get into looking ahead and roster decisions that could be on the horizon with the final preseason game coming up here on Saturday. Don't go anywhere. This is Silver and Black Today, an Aussie Sports original podcast, coming back right after these words. Welcome back, everybody, to the Tuesday edition of Silver and Black Today, an Aussie Sports original podcast. You can also listen to us on the radio if you're in Las Vegas. That's right, 10 p.m. on Saturday nights on 101.5 KDAWN. Also, Sunday early morning for those of you who are getting up early to take care of our casinos and whatever else you're doing. You can listen to it on the Bet HD2 Las Vegas as well. Mo Moton, Scott Gulbransen back with you talking Raiders football here on the home stretch. And we're looking ahead. We're going to start looking ahead. And Mo, we talked about this in both segments previous to this, but the concerns that I have outside of the defensive issues we talked clearly about is just the overall lack of depth on that side of the ball. And maybe on the offense a little bit too at certain points. We still, from a wide receiver standpoint, we've seen good performances from the youngster Thornton Jr. Also, we've seen Trey Tucker step it up. Of course, Jacoby Myers, the tight ends both look great. But the overall depth of this roster, especially defensively, is something that could change. It could change between now and then. When the rosters come up on the 27th, they got to make the cuts. The Raiders have they've been standing pat. They haven't gone out of buildings so far out a lot. They have obviously Jamal Adams and a couple other signings they've had. But now where they're going to be at the precipice of getting into the regular season and realizing where in-house talent's not taking care of business, could we see an influx of those depending where other cuts? Because there's always surprise cuts around the league. And then my second question for you, my friend, is might there need to be some scheme adjustments by Patrick Graham as well?
I'll go to the second part of your question. I wouldn't go to scheme adjustments just yet. It's still early, and they're still, for some players, learning a new system on offense. Defense, Patrick Graham has been there, but you also have to remember Pete Carroll's influence is going to be on this defense. He's going to put his imprint on that unit. So there are going to be some tweaks to it along the way. Now, cuts coming up next week. I expect the Raiders to add to their secondary. I expect the Raiders to add another offensive lineman. I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders added another running back, to be honest with you. We all talked about Dylan Lowry looking great against the Seattle Seahawks. But do you really feel comfortable with, let's say, Mostert getting a ton of carries or touches if Ashton Jeanty is out or needs a breather? So I've always had the concern about the depth behind Jeanty. Mm-hmm. Mostert hasn't proven to be the most durable running back in his career. His career started off with injuries. Sincere McCormick showed sparks here and there, but he only played 5 games last year because of injury. Is Dylan Lowry going to make the roster? I think he can, and I think he can further develop. But who is going to be your reliable number 2 just in case? Because as you said at the beginning, Scott, the difference between being a below 500 team and competing for a playoff spot, depth, you need it. Players are going to go down. You need rotations at spots. And that's where the Raiders can patch up some things around the time of roster cuts, because it happens every year where 2-3 days before the final deadline comes, teams are making trades.
Yep.
Players are cut, players are added. We're already seeing it now this week. The Washington Commanders put Brian Robinson Jr. on the trade block. They've been shopping him, according to Jordan Schultz of Fox Sports. I'm not saying the Raiders go out and get Brian Robinson Jr., but my point is there will be players available that the Raiders can get if they're willing to spend late round draft capital for them.
Now, here's the big question, because as you know, fans, and God bless them, whenever they see a big name up for trade on the trade block, they immediately want their team to get them. But in this case, because the Cincinnati Bengals are a ridiculous organization, as good as they can be, with their cheap owner. Trey Hendrickson's on the trade block right now, right? The Raiders need a pass rush. Now, they have Max Crosby. I understand that, but one man does not make a whole pass rush. Sorry, it just doesn't happen, at least not since Lawrence Taylor. And he had a pretty good crew too. So you look at that situation. Would the Raiders, I don't think they would make a big splash like that because of you have to bring the guy in and not only pay him now, but you have to give him a new deal, which is going to be a monster deal.
I'll say this. I wouldn't be upset if the Raiders were to acquire Trey Hendrickson.
But I don't think anybody would be.
I personally, I don't think it'll happen because reportedly the Bengals are asking for a 2026 first round pick and a player on defense in return for Trey Hendrickson. Now, I don't think they're going to get the first round pick from any team. I think they can get a second round pick, but still they want a young defensive player. According to Albert Breer of the MMQB, Sports Illustrated, they want a young defensive player in return. What young defensive player are the Raiders going to give to the Washington Commanders to the Cincinnati Bengals that they're really going to want? Is it Tyree Wilson? I don't think he's done enough to warrant that. Now, because
you know who it is? Earlier. You know who it is? Liam Eichenberg. Sorry. Just kidding.
Of course.
I had to go back. If you're just listening to the third segment and didn't listen to the other two segments, you're like, who's that? It's Tommy. Anyway, go ahead.
Liam Eichenberg is the guy that I envision in a Raiders jersey. That's not really a Raiders jersey. He plays for the Dolphins.
But you're right. There's no young player that the Raiders. I mean, we're talking about how they have no depth.
Right. So who are they going to give up to satisfy that deal? Unless the Bengals really like Tyree Wilson, it ain't going to happen.
Right.
It ain't going to happen.
Exactly. And it's certainly not Max Crosby. So there you go. So we'll see. But I agree with you. I brought up the scheme change only because if they're not able to do what they need to do in adding bodies from the outside, or they're just not successful for whatever reason, a lot of things can happen. Then you get into the regular season. If they're still scraping the bottom of the barrel after a couple of weeks, you're going to have to consider something, but let's hope they don't get there. I mean, I think there's going to be enough bodies on the street that they can at least bring in players that will help them get better and add some much needed depth as it goes on. Now, we talked about last segment too, the quarterback issue. I think you're right. If they trade O'Connell, that will be something. But then again, listen, if he's got value, they'll find somewhere for him to go if that's what they want to do. I don't think they cut the guy just to cut him. But it's not out of the question if they get down to it and they get who they want and they don't need to do anything there. And then you look at what happened with this offense. And I just think that I want to see another week of the offense doing that. I want to see another week of that offensive line with the setup that it currently has, as we talked about at center and at right guard. If that gels and looks good again in another preseason week for however long they play, I'm going to feel much better going into the regular season on that. What about for you going into this last game? We know all the questions on defense, they're still there, so we got to look for that. But anything else that you're going to keep your eye on as they get ready for the real action on September 7th?
I actually want to see more Jack Besh and Dante Thornton. I know they're going to play solid roles come the regular season, but they're still rookies. I would give those guys as many reps, live reps, in-game reps as I can. It's not a physical position. You're playing wide receiver. I'm not saying wide receivers don't get hurt, but get those guys ready behind Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers. So I want to see the rookie wide receivers get more involved, and I want to see a good running back competition for the RB2 spot. A lot of people pointed out to me that, Mostert was in late in that game against the 49ers. Could have been a thing playing his former team. Who knows? But usually they say, when you see a veteran player play in the second half like that, it's usually not a good sign, which also brought me to bring up the point about the RB2 spot. Is Mostert a solidified, player in that role, or are they going to look at Dylan Lowry more? Is Sincere McCormick going to take that on? Want to see what they're going to do with the running back spot and who gets those carries in that last game against the Cardinals.
Yeah, are you surprised Lowry hasn't had more carries? I mean, if you're trying to figure out whether or not the guy's going to make it or not.
I was surprised he didn't get more run against the 49ers. And that's why I said it was kind of surprising to see Mostert in the game that late, because we know what Mostert is already. He's been in the league. He's been injured. He's been in the league for quite some time now. There was no reason to have him out there late in the game other than he's playing his former team.
Yeah. No, these are all valid questions. And I think again, how well they address them. I'm still sticking with my 8-win projection, even though I think the Raiders will be much better. And I think they're going to lose games where they score a lot of points. We talked about it earlier because I think the offense will click. I really like what I'm seeing there. And if I see it for a second week in a row going into New England for week 1, it's going to feel a lot better than if it was the opposite direction. So that's how it goes. Now, Mo, we have another show coming up on Thursday. We'll get into the latest roster news of what we're hearing from our friends down on the ground at practice, as well as look ahead to the game as well. But what else do you have coming you want to tell people about between now and Thursday, besides that whole autograph thing you're doing for the release of your new cookbook?
No cookbook coming. Maybe a smoothie handbook. But if you're on Bleacher Report, I have what we call VODs over there. They drop every Tuesday and Wednesday. They replace the live shows that I used to do. I basically pick a topic to talk about. If you want to send me suggestions for topics to talk about on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, MOEMOTON on Twitter, I'll listen to or read your suggestions and take those into consideration. As Scott mentioned early in the show, I now do a Raiders daily column over at Sportsnod. That's up every morning. The latest Raider news. Not too much opinion, but just what's going on with the Raiders, up to date, maybe things that players have said, coaches have said, things to look forward to, things to look back on. I took a look at the Raiders' last preseason game against the 49ers in my daily roundup on Tuesday. I'll have those coming out every morning, so you'll have it up and at them as you're jogging or working out, whatever you're doing, taking your kids to school. You can read some Raiders over there on Sportsnod.
That's right. So if you're listening to this in the morning, make sure, because the first one's today, is Tuesday, and then he's got another one tomorrow. So make sure you check out the Bleacher Report app for that one, which, by the way, if you have a Roku, you can watch it on TV at home, right? Got the app there? Absolutely. So there you go. You have a lot of fun doing that. All right. All right, my friend. I will see you on Thursday.
Yes. Take care, Scott. Take care, Raider Nation.
All right. For Tommy and Liam Eichenberg, for our producer, Mike Ravier, for Moton, I am Scott Gulbransen. This has been Silver and Black today. We'll see you on Thursday. Bye-bye, everybody.